While Crusader Kings III has improved by leaps and bounds since its release, I think some of these massive updates make other parts of the game look outdated or poor quality by comparison. You, dear viewer, are hopefully literate and know where I'm going with this. It's time to dust off the tomes, don our priestly robes, and discuss religion in Crusader Kings III. Right off the rip, I do want to say that in terms of religion, the jump from Crusader Kings II to Crusader Kings III was very impressive. I like the freedom it gives us to make new religions, select new tenets, and tweak doctrines. But that was way back in 2020, the Dark Ages, when dinosaurs still roamed the earth. Half a decade has gone by, expectations are higher, and now that the map has likely experienced its final expansion, I assume, we can focus on adding more depth. Broadly speaking, I believe that religions need more ways to change outside of hinging on one character building up a high enough piety meter, proceeding through a specific lifestyle tree, and causing a schism in their faith. There are a number of reasons why this sucks. Why am I, as a player with the goal of changing my religion, incentivized to be the most pious, hardline traditionalist there is right before the break with my home religion? Fun fact for you, this video was originally going to be about a silly religion I was making, which would be as far from Catholicism as possible in changing the church. But this aspect got me thinking, should the Pope nervously sweat bullets every time someone becomes incredibly pious? Because at any moment they'll cross a threshold and actually be more likely to break with the church. Certainly it makes sense when looking at clergy members who have the theological chops to debate and propose alternatives to church dogma, but it doesn't really make much sense for everyone else. Speaking of being the same for everyone else, this is just repetitive. Strictly from a gameplay standpoint, this encourages you to do the same thing every time. Rack up piety however you can, reach threshold, bust out a schism. It's also just ahistorical. Yes, some religious movements came from single rulers attempting to concentrate power or resolve issues with their original church. But there have also been grassroots movements, shift in doctrine reached via debate and consensus, or just changes due to distance. Think about the difference in practices between the Catholic Church and what we'd call the Celtic or Insular Church, to borrow the game's terminology. So it's contradictory, repetitive, and ahistorical. You might not care about all of these, but I assume the average player cares at least about one or two. I have a few alternatives I'd like to throw out there to shake things up that address some of the issues of religious conversion and breakaways to varying degrees. I think more hierarchical religions with established priesthoods should have the ability to call religious councils or scholarly discussions in order to debate certain aspects of their faith. This opens up an entirely new angle of gameplay. Councils could be focused on changing a specific tenet to something else, doctrine could be tweaked, or maybe differences are actually so irreconcilable that a schism occurs. This gives a way for religions to change without a break in the church occurring, adds another source of friction within realms and churches, and gives a way for schisms to start up without needing a central figure every single time. Can you imagine it? You might actually have to care who your realm priest is and what they believe. And if Paradox ever opens the door to playing as theocratic realms, I feel like this would be a wonderful way to give theocracies something to do domestically. Geography should potentially play a role in religious practices. As I said earlier, you had the example of insular Christianity, which isn't exactly a completely different church, but rather a change in practices due to distance and isolation. Or Buddhism, which has a massive number of sects, but they aren't all shaking their fist at one another over irreconcilable differences. As practitioners of a religion get further and further away from its origin point, there should be greater ease of forming a new religion while maintaining somewhat friendly relations with the quote-unquote original. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Prof, how are we going to measure distance from a religion's origin point? Well, I'm glad you asked. I think every religion should have a chunk of land, maybe roughly a duchy in size, that serves as a religious homeland. These provinces should be a pain to convert, continue to spawn adherents to the religion even if converted, and be prioritized highly for religious conflicts. From there you measure distance, probably with geographical modifiers and factoring in continuous territory held by the same faith. This would allow isolation via oceans, mountains, or just other faiths cutting off access to the, again, quote-unquote original. Now you're definitely thinking to yourself, this religious homeland thing sounds an awful lot like holy sites. And you're correct. And quite frankly, I think holy sites in their current form suck and I want them overhauled. I don't think they should be completely axed, but I don't think every single religion needs 5 holdings picked out to be eternally important until the end of time. Holy site designation could be connected to tenets and doctrine, they should be able to be completely destroyed, they should be able to be restorable, and it should take considerable effort to anoint a new place as a holy site. But this should be separate from a religious homeland or origin point. For example, I think Roma and its surrounding lands should be considered a homeland for Catholicism. Jerusalem is still a holy site to all Christian faiths for obvious reasons, but the importance of direct control over Jerusalem would be much different than direct control over Rome for Catholicism. While I'm ranting about holy sites, I'm going to throw this one out here. Let's throw away the requirement to control holy sites for the reformation of unorganized religions, whatever that means. I know Crusader Kings III is an arcadey, gamey game and it's not meant to be entirely historical, but this just feels incredibly arbitrary and forces you into the same old play patterns. Blob to get the requisite holy sites, build up piety. The reforming of faith process itself sounds arbitrary and I wish it were different, but I'm already filling up my wish list rapidly and I'll save that for another video. Alright, for this next point, I need you all to be completely honest with me. Comment below when is the last time you ever thought about Fervor. And if the answer is, I've never thought about Fervor, or you can't remember, hit subscribe so I can remind you of other completely negligible game mechanics. So in order to make Fervor not suck eggs, it needs to be relevant and it needs to be engaging. Therefore, I propose that realms have their own local Fervor. Now, I don't know if this would be locked at duchy or kingdom level and above, and the old faith-wide fervor stays in place, but I think there needs to be local fervor to determine a realm's level of cooperation with religious authorities. This opens the door to all sorts of game design levers and buttons that Paradox could introduce. High realm fervor would reflect adherence to religious norms outlined by your clergy or priests, and might actually require considerable effort to maintain. Think donations, punishments called for by priests, acquiescing to demands made by councils, things like that. In return, you could receive things like greatly increased control, higher conversion rates, popular opinion bonuses, or some faith-specific bonuses that help faiths stand out from one another. On the flip side, low realm fervor could either be a result of failing to meet expectations of your realm's spiritual authorities, or you might be intentionally undermining them. This could lead to opportunities to liquidate priestly assets, strong-arming the church to help you with a project, or it could give you more opportunities to break away intentionally. On the flip side, you would struggle to get cooperation from religious authorities if they end up having the means to resist you, heretical factions might flourish under your rule, and conversion would be much harder to accomplish. Not only does making Fervor local make it far more impactful for the player and give them something meaningful to engage with, but it helps avoid the nightmare that was moral authority in Crusader Kings II. Hey, sorry everyone, the entire Catholic Church is suffering constant heresies because some idiots up in Scotland keep getting their churches burnt down by Vikings. I believe these proposed systems, while ambitious, would slot in nicely with the systems that CK3 already has. Councils could be an event similar to tournaments and feasts, where characters are working towards personal goals, and each faction involved has their own overarching goals everyone is contributing to. Fervor is already in the game, even if it doesn't feel like it, so I don't think anyone would be opposed to them fixing it up. I believe the most ambitious change would be religious homelands and sites, since they would have significant overlap between different faiths, and the distinction between homeland and holy site could be the source of many online arguments. But that's what you're here for, dear listener. Go on, tell me whether this is feasible, or if I should have just shut my trap and made my silly woke religion video like I was originally supposed to. Or don't. I'm not your dad.